Chapter 1. Hitting the Road. Ethan Carter sat on the porch of his small cabin in Bar Harbor, Maine, sipping a lukewarm coffee and watching the waves roll in. He was 52 years old, recently divorced, and had just sold the sporting goods store he'd spent half his life building. His two kids were grown, one in college and the other working in Seattle. His ex-wife had remarried a man 10 years younger than him, and he had nothing but time and a nagging feeling that life had slipped through his fingers. Beside him, Murphy, his loyal golden retriever, let out a sigh. "What do you think, boy?" Ethan asked, scratching the dog behind the ears. "Maybe it's time for a change." That afternoon, he packed a bag, threw some camping gear in the back of his old Chevy pickup, and grabbed a road atlas. He wasn't sure where he was going, but something about heading south toward the sun felt right. Florida? Why not? By the time the sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan and Murphy were rolling down Route 1, the ocean fading into the rearview mirror. Chapter 2. The Hitchhiker. Somewhere in New Hampshire, Ethan spotted a figure standing on the side of the road, thumb out. Normally, he wouldn't pick up a hitchhiker, but tonight, something made him slow down. Maybe it was the loneliness. The hitchhiker was a young guy, maybe 25, with a backpack and a beaten-up guitar case. "Where you headed?" Ethan asked as the guy climbed in. "Wherever you're going," the hitchhiker said with a grin. "Name's Tyler." They drove in silence for a while, Murphy snoozing between them. Tyler eventually pulled out his guitar and strummed softly, playing an old Springsteen tune. "You always pick up strangers?" Tyler asked. Ethan chuckled. "No, but I guess I figured I'd take a chance." Tyler nodded. "Sometimes you gotta take the long way to figure out where you're going." Ethan didn't respond, but something about that line stuck with him. By the time they hit Connecticut, Tyler hopped out at a gas station with a quick "thanks, man," and disappeared into the night. Ethan never saw him again, but for some reason, he kept hearing that Springsteen song in his head as he drove. Chapter 3. The Bar Fight in Baltimore. Ethan and Murphy made their way south, stopping at roadside diners and cheap motels. In Baltimore, Ethan found himself in a dimly lit bar, nursing a whiskey. He wasn't looking for trouble, but trouble had a way of finding him. A guy at the bar, a burly man in a Ravens jersey, was drunk and loud, mouthing off to anyone who would listen. When his eyes landed on Ethan, something about him must have set him off. "You look like a guy who thinks he's better than everyone," the man slurred. Ethan sighed. "Not looking for a fight, buddy." But the guy wasn't letting it go. Before Ethan knew it, a shove turned into a punch, and suddenly fists were flying. Ethan got in a good shot before the bartender and a couple of patrons pulled him apart. "Time to go, man," the bartender said, tossing Ethan's jacket at him. Ethan walked out of the bar, knuckles throbbing. He sat on the curb, Murphy licking his face. "Well, that was stupid," he muttered. Maybe Tyler had been right. Maybe he was still figuring out where he was going. Chapter 4. The Widow in South Carolina. By the time Ethan reached South Carolina, he was feeling the road in his bones. He stopped in a small town and checked into a roadside inn. That evening, he found himself in a quiet café, chatting with the owner, an older woman named Eleanor. She was in her 60s, with silver hair and kind eyes. They talked for hours about life, love, and loss. "My husband and I used to dream about taking a road trip like yours," she said, "but we kept putting it off. He passed before we ever got the chance." Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. "I'm sorry." She smiled wistfully. "Don't be. I just hope you don't wait too long to live." That night, Ethan lay awake in his motel bed staring at the ceiling. Maybe this trip wasn't just about getting away. Maybe it was about figuring out what he still had left to do. Chapter 5. A Storm in Georgia. In Georgia, a storm hit hard. Rain pounded the truck as Ethan pulled off the highway, seeking shelter in a small roadside campground. He and Murphy huddled in the truck, listening to the storm rage outside. For the first time in a long time, Ethan felt small, like a kid watching the world move around him, powerless to stop it. Lightning flashed, illuminating the world for a split second. It reminded him of something his father used to say. "Life's like a storm, son. You can fight it or you can ride it out." As the rain hammered down, Ethan made a decision. He wasn't just driving south anymore. He was driving towards something. Chapter 6. The Keys to a New Life. By the time Ethan reached the Florida Keys, the road felt like home. He'd met strangers, fought battles, learned lessons. He stood on the beach, watching the sunset, Murphy at his side. He felt lighter. Maybe he hadn't figured everything out yet, but that was okay. As the waves lapped at his feet, Ethan smiled. For the first time in a long time, he felt like he was exactly where he was meant to be. Thanks for joining us on the open road, where anything can happen and there's always another adventure right around the corner. Remember before you leave to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the open road.